Hi everyone, welcome back to Metanoia. It's a beautiful sunny morning. I'm just in the mood to vlog, so I'm going to make a video on empathy, exploring the topic of empathy. This is going to be similar to my video on what does it mean to be grounded, because that was kind of like an open-ended question, a little bit of a philosophical exploration, I guess, and then me not being sure, what people mean by that. And I am going to talk about what it's like for me to be an empath and some skepticism. So I'm not sure how well this video is going to be received, just because I'm going to be questioning a lot of things that I see and hear in the community. Angel Souls, the YouTuber, I follow her, and she's awesome, but she often brings this up in her videos, and I see it too, and I completely agree with her. Just like a lot of people claiming to be empaths, but in ways that are very incongruent with at least what it's like for me to be an empath. So yeah, it's gonna be kind of a wishy-washy video. I would love to hear in the comments what your thoughts are and what it's like for you to be an empath. And because of the kind of person I am, a lot of these videos are basically like a logical deduction in some way, mixed in with a wishy-washy, I don't know, conversation that goes in many tangents. If you follow my channel, you know it's kind of like that, but I digress. I would like to begin with talking about how it has been like for me to be an empath. And I definitely felt the empathy, took on the empath role much more when I was a child. The emotions were much more assaulting and strong and intense than they are now. I definitely feel them. And so the first thing that it was like is that I think you can only feel so strongly, at least that's been this way for me, only experience the stress for so long until your senses kind of become dulled a little bit. And that's why us as adults don't really we're not so sensitive, we're not so keen to see certain things anymore, just because it's kind of like we're bleached by the sun at this point. We're like our sensors are kind of dulled, especially if you've gone through a lot personally. So certainly it was, I think, a stressful childhood, just because of living in this world as an empath. And that's, I'm sure, what a lot of you are going to relate to. But the part that I'm not sure that a lot of you are going to be able to relate to, just because of the books that I've read on empathy and the things that I see people see in communities, is the ability to see through people and see through situations. I can recall many instances as a child becoming physically ill around certain bad people. And when I say bad people, let's call them dark people who are being influenced by dark scenarios and things, and who just are like that. I'm not talking about your run-of-the-mill narcissist. I'm not talking about people who just are, I don't have a word for them. I'm not talking about the general public of narcissism. I'm talking about like real life demons, okay? I'm talking about child pornographers. I'm talking about abusers. I'm talking about rapists. I have, unfortunately, unknowingly, and I think just because of statistics, like you're just gonna like run into these people on the street, or unfortunately your own family, So it's like, I recall in retrospect having to be like physically in the room with these kinds of people and becoming physically ill around them. That is one of the things that would happen to me, and still kind of does, if I'm around a particularly horrible circumstance like that. But especially when I was a child. And so one of the things that I read and see about empaths is about how they're very often mixed up with people who have bad intentions. You know, they become easily like manipulated by people because they are so, I don't even know, emotional or something. I don't fucking get it, because I'm like, how is a trait for empathy where you are easily wrapped up in being manipulated by narcissists and people with bad intentions, if you're supposed to be able to sense that shit, you know, like, I've read a lot about empaths as children being like these pure-hearted souls that just trust everyone. And I'm just like, if you're an empath, you can sense a child pornographer in the room, okay? You can sense that that person is very, very sick, and you become sick because you're around them. That's what it's always been like for me. I didn't trust anyone as a child, and unfortunately, I attribute that lack of trust with the only reason why I wasn't like subject to any kind of sexual abuse as a child. You know, 1 in 3 girls are sexually abused in some way. Sometimes in the worst case scenario, you know, rape. And like, I was the only, I remember being the only female in some of my friend groups who didn't have that as a kid, just because I did not fucking trust anyone. The only people, sorry, the garbage truck is rolling through, but the only people I ever remember trusting are my siblings, who, in retrospect, were genuinely trying to protect me from like a lot of situations. Looking back, I didn't know that as a small child, but looking back on it now, I can definitely see they were trying to the best they can to not shelter me, because you can't like really shelter someone, but like, you know, just look out for me and make decisions in the home that would hopefully best support my growth. So that's the first thing I would like to say, that I'm very confused about empaths always being attracted to narcissists, because I'm like, how do you not know this person has bad intentions? Now, I do want to say that, first of all, no one is all bad or good. And even people with good intentions can do bad things to people, because the human condition is a disability, okay? There's no like clean cut, this is all the good people, this is all the bad people. We're all some mixture of light and dark, okay? So I want to get that out of the way too. Like, it doesn't matter if you can sense bad intentions or not. You know, just people are people. They're gonna make mistakes. We're all kind of mentally ill in this insane asylum in some fashion because of the monkey mind, because we've inherited a lot of stuff, okay? So I'm gonna just say that first of all. And then second, when a person feels like dark, it's not always because they have bad intentions. Sometimes they're just going through a hard time. I've learned that as an adult, when I could like fine tune my instincts, like, oh, that person's actually a very good person. They're just going through like a dark night of the soul kind of situation, and they're kind of being consumed by, you know, this emotion, and that's what I'm feeling. So with that being said, I will say it is very difficult because of that to determine who's, actually has your well-being in mind and who doesn't. And I hope that makes sense. I would also like to mention that unfortunately there are some people who are equally bad intentioned as they are tactful in their ways. So like they might, see someone who is simply just very caring, a giving person, and know their psychology, meet them and know exactly what to say, know exactly what to do to get them in these difficult positions of manipulation, if that makes any sense. But is that person an empath? Or are they just a person who simply wishes to be wants to be the good in the world, wants to be the change in the world, right? Wants to give people the benefit of the doubt and be a positive thing in life. And there's people out there who just want to take advantage of that, unfortunately. And, there's just givers and there's takers. But if you're a giver, are you an empath? I think maybe for a lot of people who claim to be empaths, it's not that you're empathic, it's that you care a lot. And that, to me, is something different. To me, an empath is when you have no choice but to feel what's going on in the room through human beings. You have no choice. And this is where I'm about to get salty and just very skeptical, because I see so many people in the community and in general say, oh, I don't want to think about that. I can't handle it. I'm an empath. Like, if you were an empath and you did not live under a rock, you were forced to go through some difficult situations, because anytime you were watching a movie where something stressful was happening, anytime someone you were so close to was going through something very, very difficult, anytime there was any kind of trauma happening, it was like it was happening to you. And that's what it was like for me. And I had to move through it. There was no choice but to move through it somehow, because I couldn't just turn it off, So with that, I think that I'm not sure, but there could be a number of things going on when people say that. And I think that one possibility is that you just have generalized anxiety. Life is stressful. Everyone does have some kind of anxiety about something every day. Another possibility is that your main philosophy is avoidance. Rather than move through it, you just don't want to deal with it. And like I said, if you're an empath, at least the way I know what it's like to be an empath, there's no choice in turning it off. In severe traumatic situations, I have disassociated, just because I didn't want to feel sick anymore. So I could, for example, say I'm a child, right, and I'm having a stomach ache. I could kind of low-key astrally project out of my body for a while to forget that I'm having a stomach ache. But guess what? My body's still reacting to the threat in the room, the danger. This is also associated with, I really like the term, honestly prefer the term sometimes, as highly sensitive person. It's the idea that someone is just in tune with the environment, and every herd, say, for example, a herd of cows, there has to be at least one cow in the herd that senses the predator, okay, so that it warns everyone and everyone gets the fuck out of there. That's kind of to me what an empath is. But anyway, I digress. Moving forward. So yeah, you might just be avoiding stuff because it's too much. And like I said, it's just, I can't imagine just being able to avoid what I know it's like to be an empath. I can't just imagine saying I can't turn off the feeling of the child that's starving to death in another country. I cannot fucking do that. So how can you? So the worst possibility that's happening, which is not everyone, but I'm honestly almost positive is too many people right now, is that they actually have a hard time empathizing. They're the exact opposite, but they like the way it sounds to be a sensitive person, because you get a lot of positive attention these days in the spiritual community if you say that, you know, you're an empath. You know, it's like that's the perfect cover for, unfortunately, a lot of people trying to avoid and trying to not look in the mirror or look at something that's very hard. And, you know, you can just kind of brush that off and be whatever you want to see yourself to be if you just claim yourself to be something like an empath. People like the oh, I'm too sensitive for that, rather than I just don't care about that. Obviously, like, you want to feel like you're a good person, so rather than try to be a good person, I think that's what a lot of people are doing. And that's where, you know, the dislikes come from on the channel. Like when I spoke about it in my 2021 forecast video, as well as my 12/21/20 video that I talked about that date, the numerological perspective of that date. It was the same thing. All the dislikes are just like people who don't want to hear that actually they're not very good at empathizing with what's going on in the world. And I don't know what their motives are, because I'm not them. I don't know what's actually going on, but there's no, for sure, critical thinking about anything. There's no, like, actually looking at things and seeing through things and seeing things for what they are, which is often a very difficult truth. It's often something that's, at least in my experience, having, you know, I have like family members that I'm very close with who their main life is avoidance, and I see them go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into their mental illness. And that's one of the reasons why I'm able to see this in others, is having this very close experience with people who just live in denial, who live solely from their emotions. And it's not because they're empaths, it's because they're usually avoiding something that they don't want to look at, and it just festers and it gets worse, and that story becomes an identity, and it becomes this very strange attitude and psychological process that is almost impossible to move away from into adulthood. So I've seen this happen to so many family members. Mental illness, fortunately, we're pretty healthy physically in my family, not too much cancer. You know, people live to a pretty good age, but like, if they do, they're usually like in mental shambles by the time they're 80. Like, they're not the people they could have been, and it's a shame. But anyway, yeah, I just, to me, an empath is not being able to avoid what's real. It's not being able to avoid the fact that that person doesn't care about you, they just want something from you. It's not being able to ignore the fact that people are mostly coming out of their stories and their hatred. I can't ignore the fact that people are suffering. I can't ignore the fact that people are on breadlines while trillionaires are rolling in the dough. I can't ignore any of this, okay? And if you're an empath and saying like, I can't, you know, look at that, like how can you turn it on and off is my question, because I can't. And I can take breaks, and there's always a brighter, loving force behind it all. And I can choose to take breaks in that like bath of love. You know, I can do self-care in that way, where I take time to meditate and access the love that is there. But it's about wholeness, okay? It's not about, when I go into those spaces, it's never I'm ignoring the bad parts. It's about accepting it, acknowledging it, and saying, all this can exist together, and there is a way through it, and behind it all is this love and light. And I posted this thing on Instagram. I think that sums up what I just said much better, so I'm going to read you that right now. It says, I actually attack the concept of happiness, the idea that I don't mind people being happy, but the idea that everything we do is part of the pursuit of happiness seems to me a really dangerous idea, and has led to a contemporary disease in Western society, which is fear of sadness. It's a really odd thing that we're now seeing people saying, write down 3 things that make you happy today before you go to sleep, and cheer up, and happiness is our birthright, and so on. We're kind of teaching our kids that happiness is the default position. It's rubbish. Wholeness is what we ought to be striving for, and part of that is sadness, disappointment, frustration, failure. We chose to be human. This is a part of being human, is being angry and frustrated and sad. All of those things which make us who we are, happiness and victory and fulfillment, are nice little things that also happen to us, but they don't teach us much. Everyone says we grow through pain, and then as soon as they experience pain, they say, quick, move on, cheer up. I'd like to, just for a year, to have a moratorium on the word happiness and to replace it with the word wholeness. Ask yourself, is this contributing to my wholeness? And if you're having a bad day, it is. Hugh Mackey. I'm not sure. It's on my Instagram. So yeah, this is how I feel about that, and there's many different kinds of dangers in life. Like there's obviously human predators, there's, you know, ourselves. Like I don't think we're ever really guided enough on how protecting us from the negative self-talk and like the negative things that we tell ourselves, you know. There's so many different kinds of dangers, and as an empath, I feel like that's what it means to be, is to see things for what they are and warn people of it. Be that cow in the herd that is hypersensitive to the environment and knows that there's a snake in the grass and knows that there's something about to jump out of the thing and eat them, or knows that one of the cows is, you know, sick, whatever. It's just like, someone's gotta be the person shouting, hey, what the fuck is this? And that's me. But here in a lot of spiritual communities, you try to do that and you get pegged as being too negative. And this is what this thing was trying to say. It's like, it's not about completely being happy, and in fact that's kind of creepy. It's just, it's the main goal is not happiness, it's wholeness. It's the human experience. The only way out is through, and every speck of light that you have in yourself always casts a shadow. Wherever there is light, there is a shadow. And by accepting these two things, like in the yin and yang, everything that Eastern culture has, I think, tried to tell us before, it's when you accept the wholeness of it, that is when you gain access to this bliss that everyone is trying to sell you, okay? So that's what I have to say today about empathy. I would love to know your thoughts. And I took like so many notes for this video because I was just like kind of like journaling about it the other day and was like, you know what, this should be a vlog. And I want to see if like there's anything else in here. Yeah, I think I would just like to conclude this video with saying that my empathy has given me the ability to overcome the most difficult obstacles, not the other way around. Yes, I avoid crowds because of empathy burnout. Yes, being in forced social situations is not good for my mental emotional health, but I know exactly how to deal with them now. and I know exactly how I'm spiritually, emotionally, mentally prepared for so many worst case scenarios because of the unfortunate kind of like inadvertent trauma of having to be around so many sick people all the time and living in this world as a human being. I hope that made sense. So I'm gonna actually wrap up this video now. Sorry for taking so long with my introductions and conclusions, but I'll see you all soon. Stay tuned for the next video. Hope you guys are having a lovely December. Take care.